We kick things off with the breaking news as it relates to that massive earthquake. Plus, a look at what's happening around the West Coast. One of the world's largest earthquakes hit Russia's far east this afternoon, a monster 8.8 magnitude quake that sent tsunami waves hurtling towards Russia and across the Pacific. This video that you just saw was from Russia. Devastating scenes there, buildings being swept away in Japan. Waves a foot tall hit the northern islands. So far, no reports there of damage or injuries. That tsunami should be hitting Hawaii. And we just saw in the Fox 11 News at 10 with Alex and Christine some of those images. And you can see the white caps here. This is a live look from Hawaii. This is Pipeline on the North Shore, where a direct hit from that tsunami is expected. The tsunami alarm was just sounding here within the past hour. This is a live look. We were just on it. We can either go back. Here we go. This is still that North Shore scene. Then we had a look from Maui. It looked a little bit more calm there. And then this, just into our newsroom. A tsunami warning is in effect for Long Beach, and all beaches are closed tonight. We know that the tsunami advisory is in effect for all of the coastline in California and up and down to the Oregon border. So Long Beach, this is new information that all of the beaches there have been closed. And then also Huntington Beach Pier closed their pier earlier tonight. That pier has been closed for several hours now. As mentioned, widespread damage is not expected here in southern part of the state. There could be strong currents affecting the coast. We do want to go live to Fox 11's Ed Lascos and Marina del Rey with more now. Ed?
And Marla, the tsunami advisory certainly triggering a lot of activity here in Marina del Rey. We've had law enforcement with their helicopters and their night suns, the spotlight shining down and on the loudspeaker, making an announcement to all the boaters here. Mikey will give you a look. All the boaters, and the announcement, I'll paraphrase a lot of it. They were telling the folks that if you are staying and live on these boats overnight, to be prepared to evacuate, announcing that the tsunami is arriving. Expected the first waves, according to the announcement from the law enforcement chopper. First waves expected to arrive here in the marina in about 2 hours, so they're urging everybody to be ready to move out to higher ground, especially when the 0 hour comes and the first waves begin to hit. It's just part of over the last several hours, we've seen these tsunami advisories and the alerts hitting all over the place. Watch. The tsunami advisory hitting cell phones with its warning of danger.
If the wave comes and it's really huge, then all the docks would lift and float freely, with all the boats just floating around all over the place and crashing against each other. That would be terrible.
Sunset here in Marina del Rey, but on this night all eyes on the water instead, with boaters checking their crafts, ready for what's heading our way.
And make sure that they are correctly tied and that there is no problems with any of the lines. Your bumpers are correct.
That after a massive 8.7 earthquake strikes the eastern coast of Russia, triggering a tsunami here already, and then sending a direct threat all the way to our coast.
Which is 3 to 10 feet. And that's can be pretty substantial. So we need to remember that when these wave heights are how much sea level goes up. It's not a crashing wave like you can imagine from the beach or something.
Still, it's enough to leave the pier here in Seal Beach deserted, the area all quiet, the Huntington Beach Pier closed for safety, all from the growing threat of the incoming strong, damaging currents.
It's a very strong current, right? The water's pushing you around. There's a lot of weight to the water, and therefore we often see a lot of damage to in harbors or ports.
Tsunami sirens blaring here in Honolulu. The Hilton Hawaiian Village in Waikiki already under evacuation orders.
In Hawaii, there's a lot of beachfront property, and there could be damage as it comes into that.
And here in the Southland, the first waves of the tsunami expected around 1 a.m. Not only a threat to the boaters, but also a threat to all the low-lying coastal areas.
Not only in the marina, if it would go in all the apartments and everything. We have all seen the ones
like Japan,
elsewhere, Japan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you're looking live here in the marina, and it's certainly not expected to be that dangerous or that destructive here, but it underscores the point. Whenever you say tsunami or tsunami concerns or advisories, it sure gets everyone's attention. When you talk to the boaters here, and they know a lot more about this certainly than I do, they were saying that if it really was a very big concern and there were a tsunami warning, perhaps, they said most of these boats, they'd all be gone. And I was saying, what do you mean? And they said, well, all the captains and the boat owners would take their boats out to the ocean and they would ride it out there, Marla, because as you know, if you're out in the ocean, it's just basically the water level increases. But as Lucy Jones was telling us, this is one of the dangerous spots, because if you get those waves and the water starts to rise here in this area, if the boats are not secured, they bang around, and that's what you could have a lot of damage. So a lot of folks here, they're keeping their eyes open. Many say that they won't be. They check their boats and they're already left. They're not going to be spending the night here. But concern, but still a level of feeling that it's not going to be as serious as certainly what it could be.
And Ed, in terms of a timeline for our viewers tonight, we're still a couple of hours away until the sea level is expected to rise here.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. That's the latest announcement we were getting from law enforcement on their helicopter circling around 1 o'clock here for L.A., the L.A. County area. I heard when they were talking a little further north up in the coast of, say, Ventura, the Santa Barbara area, they were saying roughly about 12:50, just before 1 o'clock, and then Orange County a little later, maybe about a quarter after 1 or so. So it's in that time frame when we see the first waves, although Lucy Jones, who also knows a lot about this, was saying, you get the first wave coming in, but then it builds, and it could be an event that could be going on for several hours as it plays out.
All right, Ed Lascos, live for us in Marina del Rey. We appreciate you. Thanks so much. We want to head north now. A tsunami warning also issued for parts of the Oregon-Washington area. Let's go live to Jennifer Dowling. She's from our Fox Seattle station, where more of an impact is expected there. And the timing for you is within the next hour or so, if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer.
That's right. Things are pretty calm here now, but we're expected to feel the impacts in Westport, Washington at around midnight tonight. A seismologist says that this is one of the more vulnerable areas along the Washington coast because it sits on the open coast or the open ocean. Washington State seismologist Harold Tubin says scientists are monitoring the situation very closely and are analyzing data that's coming in from buoys that collect data on the ocean. He says those dark buoys, as they are called, are sending that data, and it allows scientists to update their models. He says in Washington, the places on the open Pacific coast are some of the most concerning places and would see the biggest impacts of any possible tsunami.
Main concern in my mind would be for the open Pacific coast of Washington State and the other regions along the coast. So Grays Harbor region, Westport, Nia Bay, all of those areas is where the hazard would be the highest, and people should be advised to stay out of the immediate coastal zone right around, sea level and where the water is. Don't go down and look for the tsunami and see if you can see it, because that is a recipe for getting washed off the rocks or something like that.
Tobin says it does take time to spread across the ocean, moving at about the speed of an airline flight. So he says they hope to learn more after it hits Hawaii. They can put some of that information into computer models and may give a clearer picture about what might happen here. For now, although there's an advisory in effect, it doesn't mean that people have to evacuate. Tobin says it just means keep an eye on watches and warnings and stay away from the low-lying areas near the water. He says if you're doing something like camping on the beach, then it's advised that you move right now to higher ground. He says people should also be cautious in inland harbors and bays because damage can be done to boats and other property, even if a resulting wave is not that high. And also, Washington does have a siren system in place to alert people if things get bad. If you hear that siren, make sure to leave the tsunami evacuation zones and get to higher ground. Back to you.
I see some people milling about behind you. Are you finding that most of the boat owners are just kind of waiting this out like we're seeing here?
Well, it's pretty empty in this lot, so I think people are checking on their boats, and there are some fisher people that were just wrapping up earlier today, getting their boats ready after coming in off the ocean. So a lot of folks here, I think, have been preparing. They're certainly very aware that this is coming at around midnight, and they're hoping that this increase in the ocean level or this wave is a foot or less. That's what they've been hearing, and that there is just some minor flooding. That's what they're hoping for anyway.
We hope so, too. All right, Jennifer Dowling, live for us in Seattle. Thanks so much. Adam?
Okay, well, we covered it pretty well there. I mean, tsunami advisory, which is what we see in effect here locally and for most of the west coast of the U.S., means we are not expecting inundation of floodwaters. But it is going to be turbulent. It's going to be dangerous waves. There is going to be a relatively sudden rise in the ocean level. So when we talk about, 1 foot rise or something like that, it's not a 1 foot wave. It's a 1 foot rise of the ocean and can be kind of dangerous. I want to zoom it out and then zoom into Northern California, though, to show you where there's a tsunami warning. So this is different. Advisory is one level, warning is more serious, and that's because the level is expected to be higher for this 100-mile strip of Northern California here, where some estimates are showing around a 3 to 5 foot rise. So that could be a little more serious with more flooding, and even the duration of the tsunami in a part of Northern California could be as long as 36 hours. There could be impacts as long as 36 hours. Meanwhile, here locally and other areas along the California coast, we're going to show this graphic that indicates the start time, and we've talked about that around 1 a.m. here locally, and also the max tsunami height. So not wave height, but max tsunami height. That's a little different. That's the rise of the water. So less than a foot expected here for the max tsunami height. But again, don't expect that right at 1 a.m. there's going to be some sudden immediate thing that might happen. There can be impacts, and sometimes the worst impacts can come well after the initial start time of the tsunami. So we begin watching out here pretty soon in the next few hours, but still all through the night into tomorrow morning, it's going to be worth keeping an eye on what's going on along the coast, and the waters could be dangerous. We also heard the harbors, for example, boats and docks and things of that nature can break apart, break away, as not only the water comes in, but the water goes out. That's another thing that adds a little bit to the danger. So that's it for the tsunami. We'll talk a lot more about the forecast in the next block, but for now, Marla, back.
Night LA weather is sponsored by Yamava Resort and Casino.
Okay, our weather through this week looking to be pretty quiet, very summer-like in terms of our temperatures with typical summer warmth. Not that it's going to be a heat wave, but around average for this time of year for several days. A shallow marine layer will continue to show up the next few nights and mornings. Shallow means it doesn't go too far inland, and very little change in our weather through the weekend. Even beyond the weekend, there's not a whole lot of change. Let's go to Futurecast first. That's going to show the clouds coming in, and again, notice how it's not real widespread into the Inland Empire, not so much into the valleys as well, but just around the LA Basin down through Orange County. We see the clouds early, maybe a little drizzle or mist just near or off the coast, just for a short time. Later in the morning to midday, we've got the sunshine out, and it's looking to be pretty nice. So for LA tomorrow in the morning, 60s early at 10 o'clock, around 73 degrees, 83 at noon, and then just parking it there in the low to mid 80s through much of the afternoon. Around the rest of our region tomorrow, the highs will look a lot like what we saw today. In the deserts, that's going to be upper 90s. In the high desert, something like 108 for the low desert around Palm Springs. Up towards Santa Clarita, something like 93 degrees. All these locations, by the way, we're talking about the temperatures being right around average for these individual locations for this time of year. So 90s for the San Fernando Valley to Inland Empire, that's around average for this time of year. San Gabriel Valley also around 90 or so. All these spots in orange will find highs in the 80s, and then near the coast, naturally it is a little bit cooler with high temperatures in the middle part of the 70s. Now, in our 7-day forecast, temperature-wise, you're going to notice very little change. So it's 84 tomorrow, 84 Thursday, 85, 85, 85 into Sunday. Notice the cloud icons starting Sunday, Monday. The reason why we expect a little uptick in clouds on those days is there's probably going to be some distant tropical moisture stemming off of what's not yet come together, but probably a named storm in the Pacific. It'll be a long way from here, but I think we'll find a little route for some of those clouds to reach us by Sunday, Monday. So that'll maybe just make things look a little different out there. I don't think it's going to impact our weather overall that much. We're certainly not expecting any rain from that. For the coast, a high of 75 tomorrow, holding in the mid-70s for several days. We've got the valleys and Inland Empire, again, low to mid-90s. That'll be the case for several days. 3 more regions to show you here. The mountains, highs upper 70s tomorrow, right around 80 or maybe low 80s this weekend. For the high desert, upper 90s to near 100 degrees. And for the low desert, not much change as well, with high temperatures right around 108 or 109 through the weekend.
Major breaking news tonight. One of the world's largest earthquakes of the last century has hit Russia's Far East region just a few hours ago. A monster 8.8 magnitude quake that sent tsunami waves hurtling towards Russia. That's what we were just looking at. This video shows from what's happening with buildings being swept away. Japan, waves a foot tall hit the northern islands. So far, no reports there of serious damage or injuries, but it's early. That tsunami should be hitting Hawaii in the next 10 or 15 minutes and will arrive in LA early tomorrow around 1 o'clock in the morning.
We take a live look from Hawaii. This is Pipeline on the North Shore, where a direct hit from the tsunami is expected. The tsunami alarm was just sounding here a few minutes ago.
So we expect, when you have a tsunami, the water goes out, it rises, and then comes in. This was that video we talked about earlier. And you can see here the tsunami actually moving in. This is a part of Russia where you could see buildings moving as it came in. Let's hope we don't see scenes like that in Hawaii. It shouldn't be that big, but there are real concerns in Hawaii right now.
And we don't know exactly what's going to happen till it happens. So tsunami advisory is in effect for all coastal areas also of California. While widespread damage is not expected here in the southern part of the state, there could be strong currents affecting the coast.
Especially in Northern California, where there's a warning in place right now. Let's go live to Fox 11's Ed Lascos. He's in Marina del Rey. And Ed, as we know, Marina del Rey is under seawater. So there's tsunami warnings signs all over the area there.
Yes, they sure are. And in fact, Mikey will give you a look over here. Let's walk just in the last 2 minutes, actually. LAPD with its chopper, you'll see it. It's been circling over the boats here with its night sun on, and it's making an announcement on the loudspeaker. You won't be able to hear that, but they're urging everybody to take higher ground, especially as the announcement comes from the chopper telling folks that the tsunami advisory is in effect. The first wave's expected to hit here in about 3 hours, and that announcement from the chopper as it flies by, unfortunately it's on some of the other side of the apartments now, is telling folks that even if you stay on the boats overnight, to seek higher ground. It's just all part of the continuing advisories and alerts we've been getting over the last couple of hours. Watch. The tsunami advisory hitting cell phones with its warning of danger.
If the wave comes and it's really huge, then all the docks would lift and float freely with all the boats just floating around all over the place and crashing against each other. That would be terrible.
Sunset here in Marina del Rey, but on this night all eyes on the water instead, with boaters checking their crafts, ready for what's heading our way.
And make sure that they're correctly tied and that there's no problems with any of the lines. Your bumpers are correct.
That after a massive 8.7 earthquake strikes the eastern coast of Russia, triggering a tsunami here already, and then sending a direct threat all the way to our coast.
Which is 3 to 10 feet. And that's can be pretty substantial. So we need to remember that when these wave heights are how much sea level goes up. It's not a crashing wave like you can imagine from the beach or something.
Still, it's enough to leave the pier here in Seal Beach deserted, the area all quiet, the Huntington Beach Pier closed for safety, all from the growing threat of the incoming strong, damaging currents.
It's a very strong current, right? The water's pushing you around. There's a lot of weight to the water, and therefore we often see a lot of damage to in harbors or ports.
Tsunami sirens blaring here in Honolulu. The Hilton Hawaiian Village in Waikiki already under evacuation orders.
In Hawaii, there's a lot of beachfront property, and there could be damage as it comes into that.
And here in the Southland, the first waves of the tsunami expected around 1 a.m. Not only a threat to the boaters, but also a threat to all the low-lying coastal areas.
Not only in the marina, if it would go in all the apartments and everything, we have all seen the ones
like Japan,
elsewhere, Japan.
Yeah. And now live, certainly not expected to be the case here, but it underscores the concern whenever somebody says tsunami advisories. That is the concern that it brings. Again, the chopper is now moved over, LAPD chopper is now moved over the northern side of the marina here. Hopefully he'll make one of the swings here, the loops around the top part of this apartment building. You'll be able to hear the announcement that they're making. But they're urging all the boat owners here to get to higher ground because of the tsunami alert, saying it's expected to hit here the first waves. There he comes. Mikey, if you can grab him. He's got the night sun on the boats here, and they've been hitting the siren from up on that chopper and also making the announcement urging everybody to get up on to higher ground. And even we have a lot of folks here, as you know, who call this home. They stay on these beautiful boats overnight in their slips, and they're urging everybody to even get out of the area to seek higher ground. There he's coming around over in this direction. That's a good look out of him with his night sun, trying to get everybody's attention. He's been blasting a siren, making the announcement up there. And as Lucy Jones was telling us, when you have the ports and the marinas, they are usually the ones that are at most risk, because as the water rises and there is those dangerous, fast-moving currents that they come in with the waves of the water and the sea level rising, if you will, a lot of these boats, if they're not properly secured, could start banging, and that could bring a lot of damage. But again, when you talk to some of the folks here who are very familiar with this, they say from what they've been getting from the nautical terms, they're expecting maybe the water level to go up maybe about a foot or so, and even the folks telling me it may be hitting toward low tide, a break for us, so they're not overly concerned. But you bet on this late hour, everybody from LAPD overhead to all the boat owners down here keeping a very close watch on this tsunami advisory as it plays out. For now, we're live here in the marina. Back to the west side we go.
Ed Lascos, thank you. We will go back to you in a bit, but now we go live to Seal Beach. You see out here law enforcement on the pier telling people to get off the pier at this point, trying to get people out of the area. We've seen similar scenes and similar announcements in beaches around our region. Huntington Beach telling people to leave the area earlier today as well, as they brace for this tsunami to come into our area. Again, we expect the 1 a.m. hour where we're going to get the worst of it in Southern California, but the waves could be even more damaging in parts of Northern California that are under warnings.
As we're watching this here on the ground in Seal Beach, one of our reporters reporting to me about a contact in Honolulu whose flight was delayed. She looked into the flights in that area and said that all the ones to depart or arrive around the time of the tsunami in Hawaii are canceled or delayed. So keeping a watch on things there on the ground and how it's affecting things in the air as well.
Yeah, Adam Kruger has been spending the night looking at the track of this and being in touch with the National Weather Service. Adam, what do we got?
So I do want to say that we've been talking about the arrival time. We'll start here first of all. So the arrival time being around 1 a.m. The arrival time doesn't necessarily coincide with the worst of the impact. So it still can be a little worse even hours after the initial arrival time. And we'll look at the arrival times along the California coast in a moment. I just want to show you the map view, which there's a tsunami advisory in effect for pretty much the entire west coast of the nation. Although, like we also mentioned, there's a more severe tsunami warning for about a 100-mile strip of the coastline here in Northern California, including places like Eureka and Crescent City, where the rise might be more like 3 to 5 feet there. So that's a little bit more serious. But where there's an advisory, which is what we have in Southern California, inundation is not expected there, but still there will be some impacts. And this is not the prettiest looking graphic, I know, but just showing the forecast for several cities up and down the California coastline. We've got the forecast start time, and again, start time doesn't necessarily mean when the worst of it occurs. And we also see the forecast max tsunami height, and that's different from wave heights, as we heard from the expert in Ed's story right there. This is not like a wave height situation. It's like literally the ocean rising this much. Now notice here in Southern California, that's expected to be less than 1 foot, but still there very well could be some impacts. And I will say also that this actually does coincide with high tide. In the LA area, high tide is around 1 o'clock in the morning. So the arrival of this coincides with high tide. Also, there can be damage in and around harbors from water not only coming in, but also going out. So boats and docks can become loose in a situation like this. So all things we need to be aware of here as we kind of shut it down for the night and go to bed. Make sure, you're just aware of what's going on here. Again, the arrival time of this around 1 o'clock in the morning, but impacts likely to last for several more hours past that. Back to you.